Let's begin with the question that is at the heart of this journey. What is higher consciousness? Higher consciousness is not merely an elevated state of awareness. It is a profound shift in how we perceive reality itself. It is a state where the mind transcends its habitual patterns, where the self breaks free from the limitations of ego, and where the essence of existence is experienced directly. But how do we get there? What does it take to awaken to this higher state of being? Many of us walk through life as if in a dream, unaware of the deeper dimensions of existence. Our daily experiences are filtered through a veil of perceptions shaped by culture, society, and personal conditioning. We see the world not as it truly is, but as we have been taught to see it. Our senses, while powerful, are limited. They give us access to only a small fraction of reality. What if we are caught in the shadows of our own minds, unable to perceive the light of higher consciousness that lies just beyond our grasp? To awaken to higher consciousness is to step out of the cave, to break free from the chains of ignorance and illusion, and to see the world as it truly is. The first step in this journey is to recognize the limitations of our perception. Our minds are like mirrors, reflecting the world around us. But these mirrors are often clouded by our thoughts, emotions, and desires. We see the world not as it is, but as we want it to be. Our perceptions are colored by our past experiences, our fears, and our expectations. This is why two people can witness the same event and interpret it in completely different ways. Our perception is shaped by the lens through which we view the world. Ibn Arabi, the great Sufi mystic, wrote, "The world is an illusion, but it is an illusion that reveals the truth." This statement is not meant to dismiss the material world, but to point to the deeper reality that lies beneath the surface. The world we see is not the final truth. It is a reflection of something much greater, something beyond the reach of our senses. To awaken to higher consciousness is to recognize this deeper reality, to see beyond the illusion of the material world and glimpse the infinite. But how do we move beyond this illusion? The answer lies in the cultivation of awareness. Awareness is the key that unlocks the door to higher consciousness. It is the ability to observe without judgment, to witness without attachment. When we cultivate awareness, we begin to see the world as it truly is, without the distortions of the mind. We begin to perceive the subtle energies that underlie all things, the interconnectedness of all life, and the presence of the divine in every moment. This is not an easy task. The mind is constantly busy, constantly churning with thoughts, desires, and distractions. It is like a turbulent ocean, constantly in motion. But when we learn to quiet the mind, when we learn to still the waters of the mind, we can begin to experience the deeper currents that flow beneath the surface. This is the essence of meditation. Learning to observe the mind without becoming entangled in it. In the stillness of meditation, we begin to glimpse the higher consciousness that lies beyond the noise of the mind. But higher consciousness is not just a mental state, it is a spiritual state. It is a state of being in which we are no longer identified with the ego, with the false sense of self that we have constructed over the years. The ego is the part of us that believes it is separate from the rest of the world, that it is an isolated, independent entity. But the truth is that the ego is an illusion. It is a construct of the mind, a story that we tell ourselves about who we are. In reality, we are not separate from the world. We are part of it. We are interconnected with all things, with all beings, with the entire universe. This realization is the key to spiritual awakening. It is the recognition that we are not the body, not the mind, not the ego. We are the consciousness that animates the body, the awareness that observes the mind. To awaken to higher consciousness is to realize that we are not separate from the divine. As Ibn Arabi said, the divine is closer to you than your own breath. This is not just a poetic statement, it is a profound truth. The divine is within us. The path to higher consciousness is not a path of striving, of seeking, or of effort. It is a path of surrender. It is a path of letting go of the need to control, to manipulate, to grasp. It is a path of trust, of allowing the flow of life to carry us where it will. This is the paradox of awakening. To awaken, we must let go. To find ourselves, we must lose ourselves. The more we try to control the process, the further we move from it. But when we surrender, when we let go of the need to understand, to grasp, to possess, we open ourselves to the infinite possibilities of higher consciousness. The second aspect of higher consciousness is the integration of the conscious and unconscious mind. The unconscious is not a dark, mysterious place to be feared. It is a vast reservoir of untapped potential, a source of wisdom, creativity, and insight. But it is also the place where we hide the parts of ourselves that we do not want to face, the repressed emotions, the unresolved conflicts, the fears and doubts that we push down and ignore. To awaken to higher consciousness is to confront the unconscious, to bring the hidden parts of ourselves into the light. This is not an easy process. It requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to face the discomfort of self-examination. But it is also deeply liberating. When we confront our fears, we realize that they have no power over us. When we embrace our pain, we transform it into wisdom. And when we integrate the shadow, we become whole. This process of integration is at the heart of psychological growth. The psychologist Carl Jung spoke of the importance of integrating the shadow, the unconscious aspects of the self that we suppress or deny. The shadow is not something to be rejected or feared, it is a part of who we are. And until we acknowledge and integrate the shadow, we will remain fragmented, disconnected from our true self. But when we bring the shadow into the light, when we embrace all aspects of ourselves, we begin to heal. We begin to see the world with clearer eyes, to understand ourselves with greater depth. And in this process, we begin to awaken to a higher state of consciousness. The spiritual dimension of higher consciousness is where the journey truly deepens. It is where the boundaries of the self dissolve, where the individual merges with the universal, where the divine becomes not something separate from us, but something inherent in us. He was calling us to awaken to a new understanding of the divine, one that transcends the limitations of organized religion and the anthropomorphic conception of God. In this new understanding, the divine is not a distant external force, but the very essence of existence itself. It is the ground of being, the source from which all things arise. It is the interconnectedness of all life, the energy that flows through every atom, every being, every moment. To awaken to higher consciousness is to realize that we are not separate from this divine essence. We are part of it. We are expressions of it, manifestations of the divine in human form. It is a path of direct experience. It is a path of self-inquiry, of looking within and discovering the truth of who we are. The Sufi mystics like Ibn Arabi spoke of the journey to God as a journey of self-discovery. Know yourself, they said, and you will know God. This is not a superficial knowledge. It is a deep experiential knowing, an awakening to the divine presence that resides within us. But how do we experience this divine presence? It is not something that can be grasped by the mind or captured by words. It is something that can only be experienced directly, in moments of stillness, in moments of silence, in moments of deep connection with the present moment. The divine is not something to be sought outside of us. It is something to be realized within us. To awaken to higher consciousness is to step into this divine presence, to recognize that we are not separate from the universe, but an integral part of it. The universe is not a collection of disconnected objects. It is a living, breathing organism, a vast interconnected web of life. And we are not separate from this web. We are the web itself. This realization is both liberating and humbling. It is liberating because it frees us from the illusion of separateness, from the false belief that we are isolated, disconnected beings. It is humbling because it reminds us that we are not the center of the universe, but a small part of a much greater whole. And in this humbling realization, we find our true place in the cosmos, not as masters of the world, but as participants in the grand, unfolding dance of existence. As we move through life, we encounter many challenges, many obstacles, many moments of suffering. But these moments are not obstacles to our awakening. They are opportunities for growth. They are the tests that help us to deepen our understanding, to integrate the lessons of life, to awaken to the higher consciousness that lies within us. The journey to higher consciousness is not a destination. It is a process, a continual unfolding, a deepening of awareness. It is a journey that requires patience, humility, and trust. But it is also a journey that brings us closer to the truth of who we are, closer to the divine presence that resides within us. So I leave you with this question. Are you ready to awaken, to step beyond the shadows of the mind, to confront the unconscious, to surrender the ego, and to recognize the divine presence that is within you? The path is before you. The door is open. Will you step through?